Graphing linear equations, day 2 or part 2. We're going to learn how to graph today by making a table. But before you make a table, you must solve for y. So that means I want to get y by itself. Over here in this equation, 3x plus y is equal to 5. My goal is to get y by itself. So I am going to subtract 3x on both sides. Now when I do that, I get y is equal to, now I don't want to write 5 minus 3x, and I can't combine 5 minus 3x and get 2x because they're not like terms. Always write your x first. So it'll say negative 3x plus 5. I'll explain later on in the chapter why. Okay, so we want to make our table. That means we're going to plug in values for x. We're going to put the equation in the middle column. And put y in the last column. Now you can pick any values you want for x. To be consistent and keep it small numbers, I'm going to give it negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Always give me 2 negatives, 0, and 2 positives. And try to give negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2 if at all possible. That way we have the same answers. Our table will look alike. So here I'm going to plug in anywhere I see x, I'm going to plug in negative 2. So this is my work area. Negative 3 times a negative 2 is a positive 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. Then I'm going to plug in a negative 1 for x. Negative 3 minus 1. Negative 3 times a negative 1 is a positive 3, plus 5 is 8. Negative 3 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5. Negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3, plus 5 is a positive 2. You got these positive and negative signs. And negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6, plus 5 is a negative 1. Okay, make sure you always label your x and y axis. Most of my grids are a 10 by 10. So this point right here, negative 2, 11, that's the ordered pair. That's your x, that's your y. Negative 2, 11 is off my graph. I can either extend it, or I can just choose not to plot it. The negative 1, 8, 0, 5. Okay, there are the points. Now, again, we have 5 points on this table. You might not be able to graph all 5 of them. Extend your lines past your points and put arrows. Make sure you use a straight edge. Example 2, we're going to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. So that's y is equal to negative 2x plus 3. Okay, I'm going to write this in my column headings. And I'm going to give it negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. That's just kind of a good thing to start with. Those are good numbers to start with. Negative 2 times a negative 2 is a positive 4, plus 3 is 7. Negative 2 times a negative 1 is a positive 2, plus 3 is 5. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. Negative 2 times 1 is a negative 2, plus 3 is a positive 1. And negative 2 times 2 is a negative 4, plus 3 is a negative 1. Make sure you label your x and y axis and plot the points. After you plot the points, draw your line And again, make sure that you extend your lines past your points with the straight edge and put arrows. Example 5C, we're going to make a table, but before we make a table, we have to solve for y. So we're going to subtract 2x on both sides. So that's negative y is equal to negative 2x plus 2. Now remember, we have to solve for y. We need y to be a positive 1. That's a negative 1 right there. So we can divide everything by a negative 1. When we divide everything by a negative 1, the shortcut is it changes the sign of every term. So it changes the negative 2x to a positive 2x. Changes a positive 2 to a negative 2. You could show the step, or you could do it in your head. I'm going to pick, again, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. 2 times a negative 2 is a negative 4. Negative 4 and a negative 2 is a negative 6. And 2 times a negative 1 is a negative 2, and a negative 2 is a negative 4. 2 times 0 is 0, minus 2 is a negative 2. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 2 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 2 is 2. Label your x and y axis. Plot your points. Extend your line. Put arrows at the end. Example 5D, we again need to solve for y, so we're going to subtract 4x. Now, remember what I said, always write your x first. So that's negative y is equal to, don't write 4 minus 4x, it's negative 4x plus 4. Now, that's a negative 1y. I'm going to divide everything by negative. I'm going to do this in my head. When you divide everything by negative, it changes the sign of each term. So I'm ready to make my table. Make my column. Again, I'm going to use negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2 in my works area. 4 times negative 2 is a negative 8 and a negative 4. Negative 8 plus a negative 4 is a negative 12. 4 times a negative 1 is a negative 4. Minus 4 is a negative 8. 4 times 0 is 0. Minus 4 is negative 4. 4 times 1 is 4. Minus 4 is 0. And 4 times 2 is 8. Minus 4 is 4. Draw your x and y axis. Plot your point. Now notice that the point negative 2, negative 12 did not go on my graph. If I did choose to plot it, it would have. Let's just skip it. Example 6a, x equals 3. Anytime you have just x equals some number, it is always a vertical line at that number. So draw your x and y axis, a vertical line at whatever that number is, 3. And which do we go on, the x-axis 3 or do we go on the y-axis 3? A little hint is you go over whatever that letter is. That is an x. So you go on the x-axis to 3. I always plot a point just so that it helps me to draw my line. You don't really necessarily have to, but just helps me to line up my line. So it is a vertical line at 3. y equals 2, anytime you have y equals any number, it is always a horizontal line at that number. So again, do we go to 2? You go to on your x-axis or on your y-axis? You go whatever letter that is. That is a y, so we go to 2 on our y-axis and draw a horizontal line. And here's one of the reasons why it's really important to label your x and y axis. If you don't label your x-axis, you're not sure if this is your x-axis or if this is your y-axis. You're not sure. Or excuse me, your x-axis. That's one of the reasons why you always label your x and y-axis. Example C, y equals -3 and x equals -4. Do these two graphs. So you do it, pause the recording, and then turn it back on. So y equals -3 is a horizontal line at -3, and x equals -4 is a vertical line at -4. Okay, practice. 2x minus y is equal to 3. Solve for y and make a table. Okay, so you do this problem, then turn the recording back on and see if we get the same thing. I'm going to subtract 2x. So that's negative y is equal to -2x plus 3. Divide everything by a -1, which the shortcut is it changes the sign. Make a table. Again, I'm going to give it -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. 2 times -2 is a -4. Minus 3 is a -7. 2 times -1 is a -2. Minus 3 is a -5. 2 times 0 is 0. Minus 3 is a -3. 2 times 1 is 2. Minus 3 is a -1. And 2 times 2 is 4. Minus 3 is 1. Label your x and y axis. Plot the points. Draw your line. Put arrows. Number 2, y equals 3. That is a horizontal line at 3. And number 3, x equals -2. That is a vertical line at -2. Number 4, graph by finding the x and y intercepts. Okay, this is just a quick review of the part 1. To find your x and y intercepts, doesn't really matter which one you do first. You give x 0, find y, and then give y 0, find x. So if x is 0, y is -9. If y is 0, x is equal to 6. So there are your x and y intercepts. You will only have 2 points because there's only going to be one x intercept and there's only going to be one y intercept. Extend your line and put arrows. Example 7. A swimming pool is being drained at a rate of 720 gallons per hour. The table shows the function relating the volume of water in a pool and the time in hours that the pool has been drawing. So time is x and volume is y. We are going to graph this, but notice we don't have a coordinate plane. Our coordinate plane does not have 4 quadrants. It is just quadrant 1. We're zoomed in on quadrant 1 because that's the only quadrant that both the x and y is positive. There is no such thing as negative time, and there is no such thing as negative volume. So that's why we only have quadrant 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw my x-axis and draw my y. You need to label what is the x. The x stands for time, and it is time in hours. The y is the volume. In gallons. Now, count. We need to go all the way to 14. So let's see if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It wouldn't be big enough. So I'm going to have to fill up, to get this all fit on the graph, I'm going to count by 2's. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Now, to gallons, I've got to go all the way to 10,000 gallons. So let's check this out. If I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I did by 1,000, so this is 1,000 gallons. And I'm going to count every other just so that it'll all fit. 3,000, 5, 7, and 9. Now, it needs to be in thousands. So when I go to make my table, I'm going to put volume and you could do K or 1,000 gallons. Letting me know that this is 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, so on. Alright, so now let's plot the points. 0, 10,000, that's right here. That means before you start draining the pool, at the very beginning, there's 10,000 gallons in the pool. Then after 2 hours, there's 8,640. Now we are just going to estimate and then 6, 5,700. Ten is 2,800. 12 hours is 1,014. And at 14 hours, it is 0. Now we could draw a line. Now when we're dealing with word problems like this, we draw a line, but we do not put arrows because we cannot go below, we cannot go in the negative area. So in here we would not put arrows. And that is the end of part 2.